I married her out of pity. No one else wanted that fat pig. Those words came out of my son-in-law's mouth during a family lunch. His family clapped. My daughter, Maggie, lowered her head. I stood up smiling and said something that wiped the smiles off their faces forever. But before I tell you what I said, you need to understand how we got to that moment. Because nothing hurts as much as watching your child shatter into pieces right before your eyes. My name is Helen Carter. I'm 59 years old, I'm an architect, and I founded my own construction company 25 years ago. All my life I worked to give my children what I never had: education, dignity, and the certainty that they could be whatever they wanted to be. Maggie was my only daughter, the youngest of three. From the time she was a little girl, she was different. Not the thinnest, not the most popular, but the most brilliant. At 8, she was already reading architecture books I left on my desk. At 12, she designed her first floor plan. At 18, she got into college with the highest grades in her class. I kept a photograph of her in my wallet. She was 11 in that picture, sitting in my office with big glasses and a ruler in her hand, smiling as if the whole world belonged to her. I still have that photograph. But the girl in that picture took many years to come back, because when Maggie was 23, she met William Ashford. He was the son of a traditional Boston family. A well-known last name, a sprawling house in a historic district. His father had been a prominent judge. His mother was the chairwoman of a local charity league. William studied business administration but never finished his degree. He said the family businesses required experience, not a piece of paper. Maggie met him at a wedding. He was 27, tall, well-dressed, with that confidence that comes from never having had to work a real day in your life. He told her she was different from all the other women he knew, that she wasn't superficial, that she was intelligent. Maggie came home that night with shining eyes. "Mom, I met someone." I hugged her, saw her smile, and wanted to believe everything would be okay, but there are things a mother feels in her gut. And I felt something was off from the very beginning. William would take hours to answer her texts. He'd cancel plans at the last minute, saying he was busy with family matters, but never specifying what those matters were. One Saturday afternoon, Maggie cried in my kitchen. "I don't know what I'm doing wrong, Mom. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough for him." I dried her tears. I told her that if someone made her feel that way, they didn't deserve her time. But Maggie had something I knew well, that mix of intelligence and fragility, that need to prove she was worthy of love. William knew it, and he used it. He started telling her she was special, not like other frivolous, empty women, that he valued her brain, not her appearance. It sounded like a compliment, but it was poison. Because every time he said that, he was also telling her, "You are valuable only because you think the way I want you to. Your body doesn't matter. In fact, your body is a problem." And Maggie began to change. She stopped wearing the dresses she loved. She started wearing looser, darker clothes. She stopped going to the gym because William said she didn't need to impress anyone. She stopped going out with her friends because he said they were bad influences. I saw all of this, and it hurt me. But Maggie was in love, and when love is blind, it can be the worst kind of prison. A year after they met, William proposed. It was at his parents' house, a formal dinner. Maggie was nervous. William pulled out a simple ring. She said yes through tears. His future mother-in-law. Catherine hugged her and said, "It's so good my son found someone so down to earth." I was there. I heard the tone. It wasn't a compliment. It was a classification. Maggie didn't notice. She was too happy. That night, when we got home, she showed me the ring again and again. "Isn't it beautiful, Mom?" I nodded. But what I thought was, I hope that ring doesn't become a chain. Have you ever trusted someone you shouldn't have? Have you been let down by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read it. The wedding was 6 months after the engagement. Maggie was 24. I was 35 when I had her, so on that day, I turned 59. It was in June in a garden in the Berkshires. It wasn't the wedding I would have dreamed of for her, but it was what William and his family wanted. Catherine, William's mother, organized everything. She chose the venue, the colors, the menu, even the music. Maggie just nodded along. When I asked her if she was sure about it all, she said, "Mom, it's just easier this way. They have experience with these things." That sentence broke my heart. My daughter, who had designed entire buildings at 20, who had won university awards, who had led projects with men twice her age, was now saying it was easier to let others decide for her. On the day of the wedding, I went into her room early. She was sitting in front of the mirror in her dress. It was a beautiful dress, simple, white, with long sleeves. But when I saw her, I noticed she was crying silently. "What's wrong, my love?" She quickly dried her tears, as if she were afraid someone else might see her. "Nothing, Mom, I'm just nervous." I knelt in front of her. I took her hands. "Maggie, look at me. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. It doesn't matter who's out there. It doesn't matter how much money was spent. You are the only thing that matters to me." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I do want this, Mom. Really. It's just that sometimes I feel like I'm not enough for him, that his family deserves someone better." I felt a lump in my throat. "You are more than enough. You are brilliant. You are generous. You are beautiful." Maggie looked down. "William says what's on the inside is what's important, not the outside. And he's right, but sometimes I wish he'd just tell me I'm pretty." I should have gotten her out of there that day. I should have hugged her, put her in the car, and driven her far away. But I didn't, because I thought maybe I was overreacting, that maybe it was just normal pre-wedding jitters. I know now that I was wrong. The ceremony was proper. William put the ring on her finger. Maggie smiled. But I noticed something. When the minister said, "You may now kiss the bride," William gave her a quick, almost forced kiss, like someone just getting a task over with. At the reception, William's family occupied the main tables. There were so many of them, uncles, cousins, family friends, all dressed in expensive suits, all talking about business, property, investments. My family was at the tables in the back, my brothers, my nephews, some of Maggie's friends from college. Catherine approached me during dinner. "Helen, it's a good thing Maggie has found some stability. A girl like her needs a man to guide her." I gripped my wine glass. "My daughter doesn't need anyone to guide her. She knows exactly where she's going." Catherine smiled. That fake smile women have when they think politeness is a mask. "Of course. But you know how marriages are. The man steers the ship. The woman makes the house a home." I didn't answer because I knew arguing with her was pointless. But I held on to those words. I held on to them like a warning. Maggie and William went to Cancun for their honeymoon. 2 weeks. When they came back, Maggie was different, quieter, thinner. William said it had been a relaxing trip, but I noticed my daughter avoided my gaze. A month after the wedding, I went to visit her at their new apartment. They lived in a nice part of Boston, near William's parents' house. It was a spacious, well-decorated apartment, but everything was impersonal, like a page from a magazine catalog. "Do you like your home, sweetie?" Maggie nodded as she made coffee. "Yes, Mom. Catherine helped me decorate. She has very good taste." "And you? What did you pick out?" Maggie was quiet for a moment. "Well, I chose this." She pointed to a small plant on the kitchen windowsill. A fern. It was the only living thing in the entire house. I swallowed hard. "And is William working?" Maggie looked down. "He's helping his dad with some paperwork. He says he's going to start his own company soon." "And are you going to keep working with me at the firm?" Maggie bit her lip. "William thinks it's best if I take some time off. He says being married is a full-time job." I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. "Maggie, You studied for 6 years. You're an architect. You have projects waiting for you. I know, Mom, but William's right. I need to focus on my marriage right now. I left her apartment that afternoon with a broken heart because I saw something I didn't want to see. I saw my daughter disappearing, and the worst part was, she didn't even realize it. The months went on. I called Maggie almost every day. Sometimes she answered, sometimes she didn't. When she did, her voice sounded tired. She said she was fine, that William was good to her, that her mother-in-law visited often and was teaching her how to cook properly. One Friday, I invited her to lunch, just the two of us. She accepted. We met at a diner she'd loved since she was a little girl, a simple place with the best grilled cheese and tomato soup. Maggie arrived late, apologizing that William needed the car. I didn't say anything, but I noticed she'd arrived in a taxi. We ordered, we ate. We talked about trivial things, but halfway through the meal, Maggie started to cry. "What is it, my love?" She shook her head. "Nothing, Mom. It's just, sometimes I feel so lonely." "And William?" Maggie wiped her tears with a napkin. "William's busy. He's always busy. And when he gets home, he's tired. He says he needs quiet, that I talk too much, that I ask too many questions." I squeezed her hand. "Maggie, listen to me. You don't talk too much. You are an intelligent woman who deserves to be heard." She smiled, but it was a broken smile. "Sometimes I think William married me because I wasn't like the others. Because I wouldn't demand anything from him. Because I would just be grateful." That sentence cut me like a knife. Grateful for what? Maggie looked down. That he chose me. I wanted to scream at her that she was wrong, that she was a gift, that any man should be grateful to have her. But I saw her face, saw her fragility, and knew it wasn't the time to push. "Honey, if you ever need to come home, my door is always open." Maggie nodded, but she didn't say anything else. That night at home, I took out the photograph I kept in my wallet. The 11-year-old girl with big glasses and a ruler in her hand. The girl who smiled as if the world was hers. And I wondered where she had gone. As I tell you all this, I wonder where you might be listening from. Write the name of your city in the comments. 6 months passed since that lunch. Maggie turned 25 in November. I organized a small dinner at my house. I invited my sons, my brothers, and a few of Maggie's close friends from college. Nothing extravagant, just people who truly loved her. William arrived late. Maggie had already blown out the candles on her cake when he walked through the door. He didn't apologize, just said he'd had an important meeting with his father. During dinner, William barely spoke to Maggie. He spent most of the time on his phone. When someone asked him a question, he'd answer with monosyllables. Maggie tried to make excuses for him, saying he was tired. My oldest son, Robert, came up to me in the kitchen. "Mom, that guy doesn't treat her right." I nodded silently. "I know." "So what are you going to do?" I stayed quiet because I didn't know what to do. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. That night, after everyone had left, I found Maggie in the garden. She was sitting on the bench where she used to sit as a child. Her eyes were red. "Are you okay, honey?" She nodded without looking at me. "Yes, Mom, I'm just tired." I sat down next to her. "Maggie, are you happy?" She took a long time to answer. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know what happy is, Mom. I just know I'm married, and I have to make it work." "Why do you have to make it work all by yourself? Why isn't he making it work too?" Maggie looked at me with those eyes I'd known since she was born. "Because I have more to lose." That sentence shattered me. More to lose? What could you possibly lose that's more important than your peace? Maggie looked down. "My dignity, Mom. If I get a divorce now, everyone will say I couldn't do it, that I wasn't enough. That's why he left me." I held her tight. No one is going to say that, and if they do, who cares? You are worth more than any comment. Maggie cried in my arms. But at the end of the night, she left with William, and I stayed at home, feeling like I was losing my daughter, bit by bit. The following months were worse. Maggie stopped coming to family gatherings. When I called, she was evasive. She'd say she was busy, that William had commitments, that his family needed her there. In March, almost 4 months after her birthday, I got a call from Maggie on a Wednesday morning. Her voice sounded strange, lifeless. "Mom, can I come over?" "Of course, my love. Are you okay?" "Yes, I just need to talk to you." She arrived an hour later, wearing dark sunglasses. When she took them off, I saw her eyes were swollen. She'd been crying for hours. We sat in the living room. I made her tea. Maggie held it in her hands without drinking. "What happened?" She took a deep breath. "I had an argument with William yesterday." "Why?" Maggie looked down. "Because I told him I wanted to go back to work, that I missed architecture, that I felt useless at home all day." "And what did he say?" Maggie clutched the teacup. "He said I don't understand anything, that the wives in his family don't work, that it's embarrassing for me to want to go out and work as if he couldn't provide for me, that I seem desperate." I felt my blood boil. Desperate? You have a college degree. You have experience. You have talent. Maggie started crying again. "That's what I told him, Mom. I told him I studied for 6 years, that I had projects waiting, that you were waiting for me at the firm." "And?" Maggie closed her eyes. "He said your company is a waste of time, that it's a little company run by women who don't know how to do real business, that if I go back to work with you, I'll turn into a bitter woman just like you." Those words hit me like a slap, not because of what they said about me, but because Maggie had heard that and hadn't defended anything, not herself, not me. "And what did you say?" Maggie opened her eyes. They were empty. "I didn't say anything, Mom. I stayed quiet because if I had said something, he would have gotten angrier." I got up, walked to the window. I needed to control myself. I needed to not say what I was thinking, because if I told Maggie what I really thought of William, she would defend him and I would lose her too. "Maggie, listen to me very carefully. You don't have to stay quiet. You don't have to put up with insults. You don't have to live like this." Maggie shook her head. "You don't understand, Mom. It's not that easy." "Why isn't it easy?" Maggie stood up, her voice rising. "Because I love him. Because sometimes he's good to me. Because when we're alone, when he's not stressed, he talks to me nicely. He tells me I'm special, that I'm different." I closed my eyes because I recognized the cycle, the manipulation, the abuse disguised as love. "Honey, that's not love. That's control." Maggie grabbed her bag. "I knew you wouldn't understand. That's why I don't tell you anything." "Maggie, wait." But she was already walking out the door. I was left alone in my house that afternoon. I took out the picture of young Maggie. I looked at it for hours and cried. I cried because I was watching my daughter destroy herself, and I didn't know how to save her. 2 weeks later, Maggie called me as if nothing had happened. She said she was fine, that William had been more affectionate, that they'd gone out to dinner, that he'd bought her flowers. I didn't say anything because I knew those flowers were just another trap, another hook to keep her on the line. But what I didn't know was that the worst was yet to come. In May, a year and 2 months after the wedding, William lost his job. Not that he had a real job. He worked in his father's office doing administrative tasks. But his father got tired of him showing up late, of him not getting things done, of him spending more time at the gym than in the office. One morning, Ernest, William's father, told him he wasn't going to pay him anymore, that if he wanted money, he had to get a real job. William came home furious. Maggie told me later that he yelled for hours, that he said his father was ungrateful, that his whole family was betraying him, that no one valued him. But what shocked me most was what came next. Maggie suggested she could go back to work, that she could help out financially while he looked for something better. William exploded. He yelled that he was the man of the house, that he was the one in charge, that she was not going to humiliate him by working while he was at home, that he'd rather be dead than let her support him. But the reality was that William had no money, no savings, no real skills. Everything he'd ever had in his life had been given to him by his parents, and now, for the first time, he was on his own. It was then that I made a decision that would change everything. I called Maggie and told her I needed help at the firm. I told her I had a big project and needed someone I could trust. I offered her a generous salary. Maggie accepted, but she asked me not to tell William how much she was earning. She asked me to tell him it was a small amount, that she was just helping out. And I agreed, because I understood that lie was the only way to protect her. Maggie started working with me in June. At first, she was nervous, scared, but little by little, she began to blossom. She started smiling again, designing again, being herself again, and I, without her knowing, started depositing her salary into an account that only she could access, an emergency account, just in case she ever needed to run. But William didn't look for a job. Not in June, not in July, not in August. He stayed home all day playing video games, watching TV, going out with his friends, while Maggie worked Monday through Saturday designing projects, supervising construction sites, earning the money that paid the rent, the food, the bills. And William didn't say thank you. He said, "Finally, you're good for something." I knew because one afternoon Maggie came to the office crying. She told me William had said that to her while she was making dinner. "Finally, you're good for something." As if she were an object, as if her value depended on how much money she brought home. I clenched my fists. "Maggie, how much longer are you going to put up with this?" She wiped her tears. "I don't know, Mom. I just know I'm tired." And I was tired too. Tired of watching my daughter break, tired of keeping my mouth shut, tired of being diplomatic. But I still hadn't seen the worst of it, because the worst came on a Sunday in September, a Sunday that changed everything. Have you also felt like you're giving everything and getting nothing in return? Have you carried someone else's weight while being told you weren't enough? Tell me your story in the comments. September arrived with rain. That month, Maggie had been working with me at the firm for 3 months. She had regained some of her spark, not all of it, but some. When she arrived at the office in the mornings, she still had that tired look in her eyes, as if she hadn't slept well, as if she were carrying an invisible weight on her shoulders. But when she was reviewing blueprints, supervising sites, solving problems, she was back to being the brilliant woman she had always been. I saw that transformation every day, and it pained me to know that as soon as she left the office, her light would dim again. One Thursday afternoon, we were reviewing the design for a house on the outskirts of Boston, a big project. The client wanted something modern but warm. Maggie had done beautiful work, large windows, open spaces, an inner courtyard that connected all the rooms. "This is incredible, honey. The client is going to be thrilled." Maggie smiled. It was a genuine smile. "Thanks, Mom. I like this project. It reminds me of when we used to design together when I was still in college." I squeezed her hand. "We still design together, and you're going to design many more things." Maggie nodded, but her smile faded a little. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had kept working right after getting married, if I hadn't given up everything to try to be what William wanted. It's never too late to get back on your path." Maggie looked down. "But I've already lost time, Mom. I've already lost opportunities." I shook my head. "You haven't lost anything. You're here. You're designing. You're alive. That's what matters." Maggie hugged me, and in that moment, I felt that maybe, just maybe, she was finding the strength to get out of where she was. But that very night, everything changed. Maggie got home late. It was almost 8 p.m. We had been reviewing some structural calculations and lost track of time. When she realized the hour, she went pale. "Oh my God, Mom, William's waiting for me. I didn't tell him I'd be late." "Call him. Tell him you're working." Maggie took out her phone. She had 17 missed calls, all from William. "Oh no, he's furious. Maggie, you're working. You have a right to be late." But she was packing her things, nervous, scared. "I have to go, Mom. I have to go now." I watched her run out, and I stayed in the office feeling a rage I didn't know how to control. The next day, Friday, Maggie arrived quiet. Her eyes were red. She didn't eat breakfast. She just sat at her desk and started working without a word. Mid-morning, I approached her. "Are you okay?" She nodded without looking at me. "Yes, Mom, I'm fine." "Maggie, look at me." She looked up. Her eyes were full of tears. "What happened last night?" Maggie took a deep breath. "William was angry, very angry. He said I'd left him waiting like he was some dog. He said it seemed like my job was more important than him, that I was changing, that I was becoming arrogant." I clenched my fists. "You're not arrogant. You're working. You're living your life." Maggie shook her head. "But he's right, Mom. I should have called him. I should have gotten home earlier. I should have been more considerate." "Considerate? And when has he ever been considerate with you?" Maggie fell silent, and I understood. I understood she was so deep in that cycle that she could no longer see reality. She could no longer see that she wasn't the problem. The next few days were tense. Maggie arrived early and left early. She said William needed her at home, that he was looking for a job and needed support. But I knew the truth. William wasn't looking for a job. William was controlling her. A week later, on a Monday afternoon, I received a call from Catherine. "Helen, I need to talk to you." Her tone was cold, calculated. "Go on." "It's about Maggie. I think she's working too much. William tells me she comes home tired, stressed, that she no longer has time to take care of her home." I felt my blood boil. "Maggie is working because she wants to, because she's a professional." Catherine laughed. It was a dismissive laugh. "Please, Helen, Maggie doesn't need to work. William can support her." "With what money? William hasn't worked in months." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "That's temporary. William is evaluating his options. He's not going to accept just anything. In the meantime, Maggie pays the rent. Maggie pays for the food. Maggie pays for everything." Catherine raised her voice. "That's your fault. You put those ideas in her head. You made her think she could be something more than a wife." I hung up. I couldn't listen to that garbage anymore, but that call made something clear to me. William's family knew exactly what was happening, and they didn't care. To them, Maggie was just a resource. A woman who had been lucky enough to marry their son, and now had to pay for that luck. By working, providing, and putting up with it all. That night, I called Maggie and told her about the call. I thought she would be angry. I thought she would defend her right to work. But no. Maggie just said, "Oh, Mom, you shouldn't have talked to Catherine like that. Now she's going to be upset." "And what do I care if she's upset? She has no right to tell you what to do." Maggie sighed. "Mom, please. I don't want any more problems. I have enough already." "Maggie, I have to go, Mom. William just got home." And she hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, feeling like I was losing my daughter all over again. The days went on. October arrived. Maggie had been married for a year and 4 months. There was no celebration, no dinner. William didn't even buy her flowers. But what there was a new escalation of humiliations. William started inviting his friends over to the house during the day. Men his age who also didn't work. Men who lived off their parents, their wives, whatever they could. They would gather to play video games, drink beer, and talk about businesses they were never going to start. And when Maggie came home from work, tired, Her clothes dirty from being on a construction site, William would say in front of his friends, "Look who's here, the architect. Aren't I lucky? A wife who works to support me." His friends would laugh. Maggie would lower her head and go to the kitchen. Maggie told me this one afternoon while crying in my office. "I don't know what to do, Mom. I feel like whatever I do is wrong. If I work, I'm a bad wife. If I don't work, I'm a freeloader. If I speak up, I'm difficult. If I stay quiet, I'm a fool." I hugged her. "Nothing you do will ever be enough for him because he doesn't want you to be enough. He wants you to feel small." Maggie sobbed. "Why? Why does he do this to me if he says he loves me?" "Because that's not love, honey. That's something else." Maggie pulled away. "But sometimes he does love me, Mom. Sometimes he hugs me, tells me I'm important, tells me he'd be lost without me." I closed my eyes because I knew those words were part of the game, the cycle, the trap. They mistreat you, then they comfort you, and you stay because you believe the person comforting you is the real one, not the one who hurts you. But they are both the same person. In November, Maggie turned 26. I organized another dinner at my house, but this time William didn't come. He said he had an important meeting. Maggie arrived alone. That night, after everyone had left, Maggie stayed with me. We sat in the garden on the same bench where we had talked a year earlier. "Are you happy, honey?" Maggie took a long time to answer. When she did, her voice was barely audible. "No." "Then why do you stay?" Maggie looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Because I'm scared, Mom. Scared of being alone. Scared you might be right. Scared of what everyone will say, that I failed." I took her face in my hands. "Listen to me. You are not the one who is failing. He is. He's the coward. He's the one who doesn't deserve you." Maggie cried in my arms, and I cried with her. But at the end of the night, she left. She went back to her house, back to him, and I was left alone, wondering how much more my daughter could take before she broke completely. December arrived. Cold. The holidays were approaching, and with them, an invitation that would change everything. Catherine organized a family lunch for Sunday, December 20th, at her house with the entire Ashford family, uncles, cousins, grandparents, everyone, and she invited me, Maggie's mom, from the little all-female company, The Bitter Woman. I didn't want to go, but Maggie asked me to. "Please, Mom, I need you to be there. I need you to come with me." And I accepted because I would do anything for her. But what I didn't know was that on that Sunday, in that house, in front of that family, something was going to happen that none of them would ever forget. Something that would wipe the smiles off the Ashfords' faces for good. The days leading up to Sunday, December 20th, were strange. Maggie was nervous, more nervous than usual. I noticed she was distracted at work, constantly looking at her phone, biting her nails. On the Wednesday of that week, we were reviewing a budget when her phone rang. It was William. She answered immediately. "Yes, honey. Yes, I know. Yes, I'll buy the wine you like. Yes. No, I won't be late. I promise." She hung up and took a deep breath. "Everything okay?" She nodded, but her hands were shaking. "Yes, Mom. It's just that William wants everything to be perfect on Sunday. He says his whole family will be there, that it's important for me to make a good impression." "A good impression? You've been married to him for over a year. What more of an impression do you need to make?" Maggie bit her lip. "It's because Catherine invited the entire family, including the uncles from Dallas, the rich ones, the ones with the big companies. William says maybe they can give him a job, that it's an important opportunity." I clenched my jaw. "And what is he going to do to get that job? Or is he just going to wait for his family to hand it to him?" Maggie looked down. "Mom, please, don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just telling the truth." Maggie closed the budget folder. "The truth is, I need that day to go well. I need William to be calm. I need his family to stop looking at me like what? Maggie closed her eyes. Like I'm not good enough for him. Those words broke my heart all over again, because my daughter had been feeling like she wasn't enough for a year and a half, feeling like she had to earn a place that was already hers by right. Maggie, listen to me. You are more than enough. You are not the problem. Maggie stood up. I have to go, Mom. I have to stop by the grocery store. Are you cooking for this lunch? No, Catherine is cooking, but I have to bring a few things. Wine, bread, some flowers. And William? Is he bringing anything? Maggie looked at me with a sadness I no longer knew how to hide. William is bringing his presents, Mom. For them, that's enough. And she left. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something was unsettling me, something beyond the lunch, something beyond the family. There was something in Maggie's voice that told me she was hiding something more. On Thursday morning, I got to the office early. Maggie arrived half an hour later. She had deep, dark circles under her eyes. Did you sleep well? She shook her head. Not really. William and I had another argument last night. Why? Maggie sat at her desk, took out a folder, but didn't open it. She just held it in her hands. Because I told him I didn't want to go to the lunch on Sunday. I looked up, surprised. You told him that? Maggie nodded. Yes. I told him I feel uncomfortable, that his family always makes me feel small, that I don't want to be there listening to their comments. And what did he say? Maggie clutched the folder. He got angry. He said I always exaggerate, that his family treats me well, that the problem is I'm too sensitive, that I need to grow up. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Maggie, you are not too sensitive. You are reacting to something real. Maggie looked at me with shimmering eyes. Then why do I feel like I'm crazy, Mom? Why do I feel like maybe he's right, and I'm blowing everything out of proportion? That question shattered me because it was the question of someone who had been manipulated for so long that she no longer trusted her own perception of reality. You are not crazy, and you are not exaggerating. What's happening is that he makes you doubt yourself, because if you doubt, he has control. Maggie began to cry silently. Sometimes I think about leaving him, Mom. Sometimes I think about packing my things and just getting out of there. But then I think about what his family will say, what his friends will say, how everyone will see me. I got up and knelt in front of her. And what does it matter what they say? They don't live your life. They don't know what you put up with every day. They are not in your shoes. Maggie sobbed. But you don't understand, Mom. If I leave him, everyone will say that I couldn't do it, that I wasn't a good enough wife. That's why he treated me like that. They'll say it was my fault. I took her face in my hands. Then let them say it. But you will be alive. You will be free. And that's the only thing that matters. Maggie hugged me, cried on my shoulder for several minutes, and I held her, wishing I could carry her pain for her. When she calmed down, she wiped her tears. I'm going to that lunch, Mom. I'm going because I need to try one more time. I need to see if there's anything left to save in this marriage. I nodded, though inside I knew there was nothing to save. But I couldn't tell her that because she needed to discover it for herself. On Friday, Maggie didn't come to work. She sent me a message saying she had to help William with some things for the lunch. I didn't push it. I knew that pressuring her would only push her further away. On Saturday afternoon, Maggie called me. Mom, you're coming tomorrow, right? Yes, honey. I'll be there. Thank you. I really need you to be there. Are you okay? There was a long silence. I don't know, Mom. But tomorrow, I will. That sentence unsettled me, but I didn't ask any more questions. I just told her I loved her, and we hung up. That night, as I prepared the clothes I would wear the next day, I thought about everything that had happened in the last 2 years. From the moment Maggie met William until now, I thought about all the signs I had seen, all the times I had stayed silent, all the times I had wanted to scream at her to get out of there. And I thought about what was going to happen tomorrow, in that house full of people who looked at my daughter with contempt, in that family that treated her like an object. I took out the picture of young Maggie, the one I kept in my wallet. I looked at it for a long time. Tomorrow I will defend you, my love, no matter what. Sunday dawned overcast. It was cold. I put on a simple wine-colored dress. Nothing ostentatious, nothing to draw attention, just something dignified. I arrived at Catherine's house at 1 in the afternoon. It was a large colonial-style house in one of the best neighborhoods in Boston. There were several cars parked outside, expensive cars, a BMW, a Mercedes, an Audi. I rang the bell. A housekeeper answered and led me to the backyard. There they all were, the Ashford family in its entirety. Ernest, William's father, with his gray suit and impeccable mustache. Catherine with her designer dress and pearl necklace. The uncles from Dallas with their gold watches and shiny rings. The cousins with their brand-name bags and hollow laughs. The male cousins with their pressed shirts and airs of superiority. And in the middle of them all, Maggie. She was sitting in a chair, quiet, her hands in her lap. She was wearing a simple beige dress, no makeup, no jewelry, as if she wanted to disappear. William was standing next to her, but he wasn't looking at her. He was talking to his cousins, laughing, drinking a beer. When she saw me arrive, Catherine approached with that fake smile I already knew so well. "Helen, so glad you could make it. We're very happy to have you here. Thank you for the invitation." "Not at all. After all, you're Maggie's mother, your family." But her tone said the opposite. It said, "You are a tolerated guest, nothing more." I sat next to Maggie, took her hand. It was cold. "Are you okay, honey?" She nodded without looking at me. "Yes, Mom, I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. I knew it. The lunch began. Catherine had prepared a feast, roast beef, potatoes, salads, desserts, all served on fine china, all perfect. The uncles from Dallas talked about their businesses, their investments, their trips to Europe. Ernest talked about his days as a judge. Catherine talked about her charity league. No one asked Maggie anything. It was as if she didn't exist. And William didn't speak to her either. He kept drinking beer, laughing with his cousins, ignoring her. I watched all of this and felt the anger building inside me. But I hadn't seen anything yet, because the worst was yet to come. And when it came, when William opened his mouth and said those words, everything changed. Everything. I still wonder if I did the right thing that day. And you. If you saw your daughter being humiliated in front of an entire family, what would you have done? The meal continued with that air of falseness that gatherings have, where everyone pretends to be comfortable. I watched every gesture, every look, every veiled comment. I was there for Maggie, only for her. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Catherine asked everyone to move to the main dining room. It was a long, dark wood table with upholstered chairs and a huge chandelier in the center. Everything screamed money, but it didn't scream love, not real family. We arranged ourselves according to Catherine's instructions. She at one head of the table, Ernest at the other, the uncles from Dallas on the sides, William next to his father, and Maggie and I, almost at the end of the table, in the corner, as if we were a footnote. The food was served, the wine was poured, the conversations flowed, but always the same topics: business, money, property. Who bought what, who sold what, who knew whom. Ernest raised his glass. "I want to propose a toast. To the Ashford family, to our roots, to our tradition, and to continuing to be an example of what it means to be good people in this country." Everyone raised their glasses. I did too, but I didn't drink. I just watched. Maggie didn't drink either. Her eyes were fixed on her plate, as if she wanted to disappear into it. One of the uncles from Dallas, Richard, a man in his 60s with gray hair and a deep voice, looked at William. William, your father tells me you still haven't found something to work on. William smiled. It was an awkward smile. I'm weighing my options, Uncle. I don't want to take just anything. I want something worthwhile. Richard nodded, but his gaze was skeptical. I understand, but you've been out of work for what, 6 months now? 7, Uncle. But I'm not worried. Something will come up soon. Catherine quickly intervened. William is very careful with his decisions, not like others who take any little job just out of necessity. That line was aimed at me, or maybe at Maggie, or maybe at both of us. I said nothing, but I felt my shoulders tense up. Richard looked at Maggie for the first time since we had arrived. And you, Maggie, do you work? Maggie looked up, surprised that someone was asking her a question. Yes, Uncle. I work at a construction firm. Whose firm? Maggie glanced at me quickly and then looked back down. My mom's. Richard raised his eyebrows. Ah, I see. And do they pay you well? Maggie turned red. It's a fair salary. William let out a laugh. It was a short, dismissive laugh like a bark. Define fair, honey. Maggie looked at him. There was pain in her eyes, but there was something else too. There was fear. It's a good salary, William. William leaned back in his chair and took another swig of beer. Yeah, right. A good salary at a little family business. I gripped my silverware so tightly my knuckles turned white. One of the cousins, James, a guy in his early 30s with slicked back hair and a striped shirt, laughed. So what do you do at this firm, Maggie? Bring coffee to the construction workers? Everyone at the table laughed. Everyone except Maggie and me. Maggie tried to smile, but it was a broken smile. No, I'm an architect. I design projects. Catherine intervened with that sweet, poisonous voice of hers. How lovely, dear. But I hope you're not neglecting your responsibilities at home. William needs a present wife, not a tired employee. I was about to say something. I was about to stand up and tell that woman everything I thought of her. But Maggie looked at me, and in her eyes was a plea. Please, Mom, don't. So I stayed quiet, but inside I was boiling. The lunch continued. The comments, too. One after another, like small but constant stabs. At 3:30 they served dessert, crème brûlée, perfectly presented in individual porcelain dishes. Ernest spoke again. William, I believe Richard has a proposal for you. Everyone looked at Richard. He wiped his mouth with his napkin and looked at William. That's right. I need someone to supervise one of my warehouses in Leon. It's a simple job. You just have to be there, check inventory, sign documents. I'd pay you $500 a month to start. William sat up straight in his chair. For the first time all lunch, he seemed interested. Sounds good, Uncle. When would I start? In January, but I need you to commit. No showing up late, no skipping days. This is a serious job. William nodded. Of course, Uncle. You can count on me. Richard looked at him intently. Are you sure? Because your father tells me your work record hasn't been the best. William turned red. That was before, Uncle. I'm focused now. I know what I want. Richard nodded slowly. All right, I'll trust you. But one screw-up and you're out. William smiled. There won't be any screw-ups, Uncle. I promise. Catherine clapped. How wonderful. You see, William, I told you everything would come in its own time. God rewards patience. I nearly choked on my water. Whose patience? William's, who had spent 7 months doing nothing while my daughter worked 12 hours a day to support him. But I still said nothing. Then William looked at Maggie, and what he said next was what lit the fuse. See, honey, you won't have to work so much anymore. You won't have to carry everything. Maggie nodded silently. James, the cousin, spoke up again. Hey, William, but $500 a month isn't a lot. How are you going to manage? William shrugged. Maggie will still work for now, until I can move up in Uncle's company. One of the younger uncles, Henry, a chubby man with glasses, laughed. So, Maggie's still going to be the breadwinner. William scowled. It's temporary. Henry leaned back in his chair. Temporary? Right. And how much does Maggie make? More than you. William tensed up. That doesn't matter. Of course it matters. If she earns more, then technically she's the one supporting you, isn't she? Everyone at the table fell silent, waiting for William's response. William clenched his jaw, drank more beer, and then something in him snapped. I saw his face harden. I saw his eyes fill with rage. Rage at Maggie, rage at me, rage at the world. And then he said what he'd been holding back for months. You know what? Yes, Maggie supports me. So what? I married her knowing what she was. Maggie looked up, shocked, scared. William? But he didn't stop. The beer, the pressure, the humiliation he felt in front of his family, it all came pouring out. William stood up, looked at his family, and then looked at Maggie with a contempt I had never seen in anyone. I married her out of pity, because no one else wanted her, because she's a fat pig who should be grateful someone like me chose her. The silence that followed was deafening. No one moved, no one breathed. And then, the worst part. William's family started to laugh. First it was James, then Henry, then the cousins, then the uncles. All of them. They all laughed as if it were a joke, as if humiliating my daughter in front of everyone was hilarious. Catherine covered her mouth, but her eyes shone with that cruelty of people who enjoy others' pain. Ernest shook his head, smiling as if to say, "That's my boy. What a character!" And Maggie? Maggie lowered her head. Her shoulders began to tremble. Tears fell onto her plate, but she made no sound. She didn't scream. She didn't defend herself. She just broke in silence. And I felt something I had never felt in my life. I felt a complete calm, a perfect clarity. I stood up from my chair. Everyone stopped laughing and looked at me. I smiled. I smiled in the same way they had smiled. And then I spoke. My voice was calm, firm, without a trace of doubt. "William, are you finished?" He looked at me confused. "What?" "I'm asking if you're finished. If you've said everything you wanted to say about my daughter." William scowled. "This isn't your problem, Helen." I kept smiling. "You're right. It's not my problem. It's yours." "What are you talking about?" I took a step toward him. The whole table watched me in silence. "I'm talking about the fact that my daughter, that fat pig you claim nobody wanted, is the only reason you still have a roof over your head. I'm talking about the fact that for 7 months, she has paid your rent, your food, your beers, and your nights out with your useless friends. I'm talking about the fact that she works 12 hours a day designing projects you couldn't even begin to understand." William went pale. "Helen." But I wasn't finished. "And since we're speaking truths in front of your family, let's talk about another truth. William Ashford works for me. Did you know that?" Everyone at the table froze. Ernest frowned. "What are you saying?" I looked William directly in the eyes. "I'm saying that 3 months ago, when your son couldn't find a job anywhere, when no company wanted him because he has a reputation for being late, unreliable, and incompetent, I gave him a job. Out of pity. For my daughter." William shook his head. "That's a lie." I took out my phone, opened my email, showed it to Ernest. "Here's the contract. William Ashford, administrative assistant at my construction firm. Salary, $800 a month, less than what my construction workers make, because that's all he's worth." Ernest read the email. His face changed completely. Catherine turned white. William stood there trembling. That's not... I cut him off. "You know what's saddest, William? The only reason I haven't fired you is because my daughter asked me not to. She said, 'Mom, please give him a chance. He needs to work. He needs to feel useful.'" I looked at the entire Ashford family. My daughter, that woman you just called a fat pig, that woman you claim nobody wanted, that woman has been begging for you, defending you, supporting you, saving you. Richard, the uncle from Dallas, spoke for the first time in a harsh voice. William, is this true? William couldn't speak. He just looked down. I continued. And since we're all here, in front of your whole family, I'll say one more thing. William can't do anything right. The only thing he knows how to do well is clean toilets. And that's because I taught him. Because when he started at my company, he couldn't even answer a phone correctly. Catherine stood up furious. That's enough! How dare you come into my house and insult my son? I looked her right in the eye. I didn't come here to insult anyone. I came because my daughter asked me to. But your son decided to humiliate her in front of all of you, and you all decided to laugh. So now you're all going to hear the truth. I turned to Maggie. She was crying, but now she was looking at me, her eyes wide open. Maggie, get up. She hesitated. Mom, get up, honey. It's enough. Maggie slowly stood up. I took her hand. We're leaving. Now. Maggie nodded. She grabbed her purse and together we walked toward the exit. Behind us, I heard the absolute silence of the Ashford family. No one stopped us. No one said a word. Because for the first time in a long time, they were speechless. The smiles they had worn just minutes before had been wiped away forever. And as we walked out of that house, as Maggie cried silently beside me, I knew something had changed. Something deep. Something irreversible. We left that house in silence. Maggie walked beside me as if in shock, as if she couldn't process what had just happened. I led her to my car. I opened the passenger door. She sat down without a word. I started the engine. We drove out of that neighborhood of large houses and perfect lawns. No one followed us. No one came out to stop us. The Ashford family stayed inside, digesting what they had just heard. I drove in silence for 10 minutes. Maggie stared out the window. The tears kept falling, but she wasn't sobbing anymore. It was a silent cry, the most painful kind. When we stopped at a red light, I turned to look at her. Are you okay, honey? Maggie didn't answer. She kept staring out the window. Maggie, look at me! She turned slowly. Her eyes were red, swollen. But there was something else. There was a question, a doubt. Why did you do it, Mom? I frowned. Why did I do what? Why did you give William a job? Why didn't you tell me? I took a deep breath. The light turned green. I kept driving. Because you asked me to, honey. 3 months ago, when William had been jobless for 4 months, you came to my office crying. You told me he was depressed, that he felt useless, that he needed something to make him feel valuable. You begged me to give him a chance. Maggie closed her eyes. I don't remember that. Because you've blocked out a lot of things, my love. Because you've been surviving, not living. Maggie covered her face with her hands. And why didn't you tell me how much you were paying him? Why didn't you tell me you had him cleaning toilets? I pulled the car over to the side of the road, turned off the engine, and turned completely towards her. Because you asked me not to tell you anything. You said, Mom, please, pay him whatever, but don't tell me how much. I don't want to know. I just need him to have something. And I agreed, because I love you. Because I would do anything for you. Maggie started crying again. But this time it was different. It was a cry of release, of rage, of accumulated pain. And the toilet cleaning. Is that true? I nodded. It's true. But it wasn't a punishment, Maggie. It was because it's the only thing he could do right. I gave him administrative tasks, answering phones, organizing files, delivering documents. He couldn't handle any of it. He was late, he made mistakes, he spent all his time on his phone. The workers complained about him, so I had him clean the offices and bathrooms at the end of the day. And that worked, because it was something he couldn't mess up. Maggie sobbed. Oh my God, Mom. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me go on believing he was looking for a job? Because you wanted to believe that. Because you needed to believe he could change, and I wasn't going to take that hope away from you. Not until you were ready to see it for yourself. Maggie took several deep breaths, trying to calm down. And the job Richard offered him? The $500 a month? I shook my head. It won't last. William doesn't know how to work under pressure. He doesn't know how to keep a schedule. He doesn't know how to be responsible. He'll fail. And Richard will fire him in less than 2 months. Maggie wiped her tears with the sleeve of her dress. How can you be so sure? Because I've been running a company for 25 years, honey. Because I've seen hundreds of people work. And I know how to recognize someone who doesn't have what it takes. William isn't inherently evil, but he is weak. And weakness, when it's not worked on, turns into cruelty. Maggie looked out the window again. And what am I going to do now, Mom? Where am I going to go? I took her hand. You're going to come to my house. You're going to stay with me for as long as you need. And tomorrow we're going to go to your apartment to get your things. Maggie shook her head. I can't do that. I'm still married to him. Still? Still what, Maggie? Do you still love him? Maggie closed her eyes. The tears started falling again. I don't know, Mom. I don't know what I feel. I just know I'm scared. Scared of what? Scared of being alone. Scared that he's right. That no one else will want me. That I'm the problem. I took her face in my hands, forcing her to look at me. Listen to me very carefully, Maggie Carter. You are not the problem. You were never the problem. You are brilliant. You are beautiful. You are valuable. And any man who can't see that is either blind or a coward or both. Maggie cried in my arms for several minutes. I held her, stroking her hair, remembering when she was a little girl and would cry over scraped knees or friends who had hurt her feelings. But this was different. This was a deeper pain, a pain that couldn't be fixed with a kiss and a bandage. After a while, Maggie pulled away. Okay, Mom, let's go to your house. I started the car again. We arrived at my house 20 minutes later. It was 5 in the afternoon. The sky was gray, threatening rain. We went inside. I made her tea. We sat in the living room. Maggie held the cup in her hands, staring at the liquid as if it held all the answers. How long did you know William was like this? I took a sip of my tea before answering. From the beginning. From the first time I saw him. Maggie looked up, surprised. From the beginning? Yes. When you came home that night after meeting him, when you told me you'd met someone special, I saw something in your eyes. I saw insecurity. I saw need. And I knew that any man who approached you at that moment wasn't going to be the right one. Maggie frowned. Why didn't you say anything? Because you wouldn't have listened. Because you were in love. Or rather, you were in love with the idea that someone had chosen you, and I couldn't take that away from you. Not without hurting you. Maggie looked down. You're right. I wouldn't have listened. I know. And that's why I stayed quiet. That's why I let you make your own mistakes. Because sometimes pain is the only teacher that truly teaches us. Maggie was quiet for a moment. And if I had stayed, if you hadn't said anything today, if I had just stayed quiet like always? I looked at her intently. Then you would have broken completely, and maybe you wouldn't have been able to recover. Maggie took a deep breath. Thank you, Mom, for doing what I couldn't do. I squeezed her hand. I will always protect you, honey. Always. That night, Maggie stayed in her old room, the room that had been hers before she got married, before William, before everything. I gave her clean clothes, towels, everything she needed. We had a light dinner, soup and bread. Neither of us had much of an appetite. At 9 p.m., Maggie's phone started ringing. It was William. She looked at the screen and then looked at me. Should I answer? I shook my head. Not tonight. Tonight is for you. To rest. To breathe. Maggie turned off her phone and left it on the living room table. But at 10, the texts started coming. I saw them on the phone screen as I walked past the table. Maggie, we need to talk. Please answer. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to say that. My family is mad at me because of you. I need you to come home. If you don't come back, I'm coming for you. Each message was more desperate than the last, but also more manipulative. At 11 p.m., there was a knock on my door. Maggie was in her room. I went to open it. I already knew who it was. William was on the other side. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red. He had been drinking. "Where's Maggie?" I crossed my arms. "That's none of your business." "Yes, it is my business. She's my wife." "Your wife, whom you called a fat pig in front of your entire family." William clenched his jaw. "It was a mistake. I was angry. I wasn't thinking." "Exactly. You weren't thinking. But you said it. And that's what you really think." William tried to push past me. I stood in his way. "You are not coming into my house, William." "Let me talk to her." "No." William raised his voice. "She's my wife. I have a right." "You have no right. Not after what you did." Behind me, I heard footsteps. I turned. Maggie had come out of her room. She was standing in the hallway, looking at William. William saw her and his expression changed. It softened. It became vulnerable. "Honey, please forgive me. I don't know what came over me. It was the pressure. The family. Everything. I didn't mean those things." Maggie walked slowly towards the door. I stepped aside, but I stayed close. "William, I'm tired." "I know, honey. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. But I need you to come home. We need to talk." Maggie shook her head. "I can't go back, William. Not now." William took a step forward. "Why? Because of what I said? I already told you I'm sorry. What more do you want?" Maggie looked at him intently. "I want you to tell me the truth. I want you to tell me if you really married me out of pity." William went pale. "No, honey. Of course not. I love you." "You really love me?" William nodded desperately. "Yes, I love you. You're my wife. You're important to me." Maggie smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You didn't say I'm beautiful. You didn't say I'm valuable. You said I'm important, like an object, like something useful." William fell silent. Maggie continued. "For a year and 7 months, I have tried to be enough for you. I've worked, I've cooked, I've cleaned, I've put up with comments from your family, I've put up with your humiliations, and it's never been enough. Because for you, I will never be enough." William shook his head. "That's not true." "Yes, it is. And you know it. That's why you said what you said today. Because deep down, that's what you think. That I should be grateful, that you did me a favor, that I'm less than you." William tried to get closer, but Maggie took a step back. "Don't come near me." "Maggie, please." "No, William." "Not anymore. I need time. I need to think. I need to be away from you." William changed tactics. His voice became harsh. "And you're going to stay here with your mommy like a little girl?" Maggie lifted her chin. "Yes, I'm going to stay with my mom. Because she respects me. Because she values me. Because she has never called me a fat pig in front of anyone." William clenched his fists. "This is her fault. She put ideas in your head. She made you think you're better than me." I stepped in. "I didn't put anything in her head. I just showed her the truth. Something you never did." William looked at me with hatred. "This is between my wife and me. Your wife is under my roof, and as long as she's here, she will be treated with respect. Something you know nothing about." William took a threatening step towards me, but Maggie got in between us. "Leave, William, please. Just leave." William stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're going to regret this. Both of you are going to regret this." And he left. He got in his car and drove away. Maggie closed the door, leaned against it, and began to tremble. I hugged her. I held her as she cried. "It's over, honey. It's over." But we both knew it wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Neither of us slept well that night. I stayed awake in the living room, listening for any noise. Maggie stayed awake in her room, crying silently. The next day, Monday, December 21st, we decided to go to Maggie's apartment to get her things. I didn't want her to go alone. I didn't trust William. We arrived at the apartment at 10 in the morning. William's car wasn't there. Maggie opened the door with her key. The place was a disaster. Empty beer bottles on the table, clothes thrown on the floor, dirty dishes in the sink. As if William had thrown a party, or as if he had simply let himself go. Maggie walked slowly through the apartment, looking at everything with sadness. "This was my home." I put a hand on her shoulder. "Not anymore. Your home is where you feel safe, and you're not safe here anymore." Maggie nodded. We went to the bedroom. She started packing her clothes into suitcases. I helped her. We gathered her documents, her books, her personal belongings. In the closet, I found something. An envelope. It was hidden between some shoe boxes. I opened it. Inside were photographs. Photographs of Maggie before she got married, when she still smiled, when she still had a light in her eyes. I showed the photographs to Maggie. She looked at them and started to cry again. "Look who I was, Mom. Look how I smiled." I hugged the photographs to my chest. "And you're going to smile like that again, I promise you." We finished packing at noon. We loaded the suitcases into the car. Maggie took one last look around the apartment. She stopped in front of the kitchen window where the fern was, the only plant she had chosen, the only living thing in that whole house. "I'm taking it, Mom." I nodded. "Take it. Take everything that's yours." Maggie picked up the fern, held it carefully, and we walked out of that apartment for the last time. When we reached my car, Maggie looked back one more time. "Goodbye?" I don't know if she was saying goodbye to the apartment, to William, or to the life she had tried to build. Maybe all three. We drove back to my house in silence. But this time, it was a different kind of silence. It wasn't a silence of pain, it was a silence of closure. When we got to my house, we unloaded the suitcases, took them to her room. Maggie sat on the bed, holding the fern in her lap. "Mom, do you think I'll ever be okay?" I sat next to her. "Yes, my love. You're going to be okay. But it's going to take time, and it's going to hurt. But you will heal." Maggie nodded. "Thank you for not abandoning me." I took her hand. "I would never abandon you. You're my daughter. You're my life." That afternoon, Maggie started unpacking, little by little, as if rebuilding her life, one piece of clothing at a time. And I stayed close by, watchful, protective, because I knew the worst hadn't come yet. William was not going to stay quiet, and neither was the Ashford family. The following days were strange. It was Christmas week. The streets of Boston were filled with lights, carols, and families buying gifts. But in my house, there was a heavy silence, a silence of mourning. Maggie spent most of her time in her room. She didn't cry as much as before. Now, she just stared out the window as if processing everything she had lived through, as if waking up from a long, dark dream. On Wednesday, December 22nd, I tried to get her out of her room. "Honey, come have breakfast with me." She came out slowly. She was wearing one of my old sweaters. She looked small, fragile, but there was also something different in her eyes, something clearer. We sat in the kitchen. I made coffee and pastries. She ate in silence. "How are you feeling today?" Maggie took a while to answer. "I don't know, Mom. Sometimes I feel like I woke up from a nightmare." Other times, I feel like the nightmare is just beginning. I nodded. That's normal. What you went through wasn't easy, and getting out of it isn't either. Maggie took a sip of coffee. You know what's strangest? I don't miss William. I miss the idea of what could have been. I miss the hope I had at the beginning, but him. I don't miss him. Those words gave me hope because they meant she was starting to see reality. That's good, honey. It means you're healing. Maggie looked at her coffee cup. But I'm scared, Mom. Scared of what's going to happen. William won't let me go that easily. Neither will his family. I took her hand. I know, but we'll face it together. You're not alone. That same afternoon, I got a call. It was from my secretary at the firm. Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Catherine Ashford called. She asked for you. I told her you weren't available, but she was very insistent. She left a message. What message? She said she needs to speak with you urgently, that it's about Maggie, and that if you don't call her back, she's coming to the office. I took a deep breath. All right. Thank you for letting me know. I hung up and looked at Maggie, who was sitting in the living room. Your mother-in-law wants to talk to me. Maggie went pale. What are you going to do? I sat next to her. I'm going to talk to her, but not here. I don't want her coming to this house. I'll meet her at a cafe, a public place. Maggie nodded. Do you want me to go with you? I shook my head. No, I'll handle this. You need to rest. The next day, Thursday, December 23rd, I met Catherine at a cafe downtown. I was on time. She arrived 10 minutes late, as usual. She sat across from me with that look of superiority I already knew. But there was something else. There was nervousness, worry. Helen, thank you for coming. I didn't have a choice. You said it was urgent. Catherine ordered a coffee from the waiter, then looked at me intently. I need Maggie to go back to William. I almost laughed. Excuse me? I need you to talk to her, to convince her, to tell her that what happened on Sunday was a misunderstanding. I leaned back in my chair. A misunderstanding? Your son called my daughter a fat pig in front of your entire family, and all of you laughed. That's a misunderstanding? Catherine clenched her jaw. William was stressed, the pressure, the job, everything. He didn't mean it. Of course he meant it. If he didn't think it, he wouldn't have said it. Catherine raised her voice slightly. Look, Helen, I understand you're upset, but Maggie is his wife. She has responsibilities. She can't just abandon her marriage because her husband said something in a moment of anger. I leaned forward. Responsibilities? What responsibilities does Maggie have to a man who humiliates her, who doesn't work, who lives off her? Catherine turned red. William is working. He has a job. Yes, at my company, cleaning toilets, because it's the only thing he can do well. Catherine closed her eyes. That was unnecessary, Helen. You didn't have to humiliate him like that in front of the whole family. I laughed humorlessly. Humiliate him? And what do you think he did to Maggie for a year and 7 months? What do you think he did when he told her no one else wanted her? When he made her feel like she should be grateful he married her? Catherine looked down. That was a mistake. But marriages have problems. That doesn't mean it has to end. I shook my head. This isn't a marriage problem. This is abuse. And I will not allow my daughter to return to a situation where she is mistreated. Catherine looked at me with shimmering eyes. And what is Maggie going to do? Is she going to live with you forever? Is she going to be a divorced woman at 26? Do you know what people will say about her? I stood up. I couldn't care less what they say. The only thing I care about is my daughter being okay, and with your son, she was never okay. Catherine also stood up. This isn't over, Helen. William has rights. He's married to her. He can fight for her. I looked at her intently. Let him try. But I'm warning you, Catherine. If your son comes near my daughter, If he tries to pressure her, if he tries to harm her in any way, I will use every resource I have to destroy him. And believe me, I have a lot of resources." Catherine went pale. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you, there's a difference." And I walked out of the cafe without looking back. When I got home, Maggie was in the living room waiting for me. "What happened, Mom?" I sat next to her and told her everything. Maggie listened in silence. When I finished, she sighed. I knew they wouldn't let it go that easily. "They're not going to let you go without a fight. But it doesn't matter. We'll face them." Maggie looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Mom, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough." I took her face in my hands. "You are stronger than you think, and you are not alone. I am with you. Always." That night, Christmas Eve, we spent it alone at home. No special dinner, no family, no celebration. Just the two of us, sitting in the living room, watching old movies. But there was peace. For the first time in a long time, there was peace. On Friday, December 25th, Christmas Day, Maggie's phone didn't stop ringing. William, Catherine, even some cousins, all calling, all insisting, all asking her to come back. Maggie turned off her phone after the 10th call. "I can't anymore, Mom. I can't keep listening to them." I took her phone. "Then don't. Change your number. Block them. Do whatever you need to do to have peace." Maggie nodded. "Okay. I will." On Saturday, December 26th, we went together to change her phone number. It was a symbolic act, like closing a door, like starting over. When we left the phone store, Maggie took a deep breath. "I feel like I can breathe again." I smiled. "Because you're getting your life back." The next few days were quieter. No calls, no texts, no pressure. Maggie started coming out of her room more often, started helping me in the kitchen, started to smile a little. On Monday, December 28th, she said something that surprised me. "Mom, I want to go back to work." I looked up from the newspaper I was reading. "Are you sure? You can take more time." Maggie shook her head. "No, I need to work. I need to feel useful again. I need to get back to who I was before William." I smiled. "Okay, when you're ready, you can come back." Maggie took a deep breath. "I'm ready now." On Wednesday, December 30th, Maggie returned to the office. The workers greeted her with hugs and words of support. Many of them had worked with William. Many of them knew what he was like. One of the engineers, Mr. Roberts, a man in his 50s with 30 years of construction experience, approached Maggie. "Miss Maggie, it's good to have you back. We missed you." Maggie smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Roberts." Mr. Roberts lowered his voice. "And if I may say so, you did the right thing leaving that man. We saw it. We saw how he treated you when he came to pick you up. We saw how he spoke to you. And it wasn't right." Maggie nodded, her eyes shining. "Thank you for telling me that." That day, Maggie worked in silence. She reviewed blueprints, did calculations, answered emails as if she had never left, and I watched her from my office, feeling like my daughter was coming back. On Thursday, December 31st, the last day of the year, we decided to have dinner together at home. Nothing special, just the two of us. At 11 p.m., we were sitting in the garden, looking at the sky. "You know what, Mom? This was the worst year of my life, but it was also the year I woke up." I took her hand. "And next year will be better. I promise you." Maggie smiled. "I know." At the stroke of midnight, we heard the fireworks. The new year had arrived. Maggie closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Goodbye to all the old. Welcome the new. And in that moment, I knew my daughter was going to be okay. Not immediately, not without pain, but she was going to be okay. Because she had made the hardest decision of her life. She had chosen her dignity over comfort. She had chosen her peace over the approval of others, and that, in itself, was already a victory. But what we didn't know was that William still had one card left to play, and January was going to bring consequences that neither of us expected. January arrived with a fresh breeze. The new year always brings that feeling of possibility, of a blank page. And for Maggie, it was exactly that, a chance to start over. The first few days of January were peaceful. Maggie went to the office every day. She worked on new projects. She smiled more, talked more. It was like watching a withered plant begin to bloom again. On Monday, January 4th, we were in the office reviewing the budget for a new house when my phone rang. It was Mr. Roberts, the engineer. "Mrs. Carter, I need to talk to you. It's about William." I frowned. "What about him?" "He didn't come to work today. It's the third day in a row, and before the holidays, he had already missed 2 days without notice." I sighed. "All right, thanks for letting me know." I hung up and looked at Maggie. She had heard the conversation. "Let him go, Mom. He's not your problem anymore." I nodded. "You're right, I'm firing him." That same afternoon, I sent an email to William. Formal, direct. "Dear William, due to unexcused absences and poor performance, your employment with this company is terminated, effective today, January 4th. You may come by tomorrow to pick up your final paycheck. Regards." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't care about his response. The next day, Friday, January 5th, William arrived at the office at 10 in the morning. I was in a meeting with a client. Mr. Roberts told me he had arrived. I asked Mr. Roberts to give him his final check and escort him out. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to talk to him. But William didn't leave. He waited outside my office for 2 hours. When my meeting ended and I came out, there he was, sitting in the waiting area, with a lost look in his eyes. "William, you have no business being here anymore." He looked up. His eyes were red. He had been crying. "I need to talk to you, Helen. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes." I looked at my watch. Maggie had left early that day. She wasn't at the office. That gave me some reassurance. "Fine, 5 minutes, in my office." We went in. I closed the door. William sat across from my desk. I remained standing. "Speak." William took a deep breath. "I need you to tell Maggie to talk to me. She changed her number. She doesn't answer my messages. I don't know where she is." I looked at him intently. "She is where she needs to be, away from you." William shook his head. "You don't understand. I love her. I made mistakes, I know, but I love her." "You don't know what love is, William, because if you loved her, you would never have treated her the way you did." William covered his face with his hands. "I'm lost, Helen. I lost my job. I lost my wife. My family is disappointed in me. I don't know what to do." I felt no pity, only exhaustion. "That's your responsibility, not mine, and it's definitely not Maggie's." William looked up. "But she's my wife. She has to talk to me. She has to give me a chance to fix things." "She owes you nothing. She already gave you too many chances and you wasted them all." William clenched his fists. "This is your fault. You convinced her to leave me. You put ideas in her head." I moved closer to him. "No, I just showed her the truth. And the truth is, you are a weak, manipulative, and cruel man, and my daughter deserves better." William stood up, furious. "You have no right to say that to me." "I have every right, because I'm her mother, and I will protect her from you or from anyone else who tries to hurt her." William walked to the door, but before leaving, he turned back. "You're going to regret this, Helen. Both of you will regret this." And he left. I closed the door and took a deep breath. I called Maggie immediately. "Honey, where are you?" "At home, Mom. Why?" "William came to the office. He's desperate. He wants to talk to you." There was a long silence. "I don't want to talk to him, Mom." "I know, I just wanted to let you know. just in case he tries to come to the house. Okay, I'll be careful. We hung up. That night, I reinforced the security at my house. I changed the locks, installed cameras at the entrance. I wasn't taking any risks. The following days were tense. Maggie didn't go out alone. She always went with me to work, to the supermarket, everywhere. On Monday, January 11th, 2 weeks after Maggie had left, I got a call from Richard, the uncle from Dallas who had offered William a job. "Helen, good morning. Sorry to bother you. Do you have a moment?" "Of course, Richard. Go ahead." "It's about William. I gave him the chance to work at my warehouse in Lyon. He started on January 7th. Today is the 11th, and I've already had to fire him." I wasn't surprised. "What happened?" Richard sighed. "He wasn't on time. He came in smelling of alcohol. He didn't do his tasks. The workers complained about him. Last Friday, he didn't show up. Monday either. Today he showed up at 11 in the morning without an apology, as if nothing had happened. I told him to leave and not come back." I closed my eyes. "I understand. I'm sorry you had to go through that." Richard lowered his voice. "Helen, I saw what happened at the Christmas lunch. I saw how he treated Maggie, and honestly, I was ashamed. Ashamed that that boy is my family." "Thank you for saying that. How is Maggie?" "She's better. She's working with me. She's healing." Richard sounded relieved. "Good. She was always too good for him. We all knew it, but no one wanted to say it." We hung up. That same afternoon, I told Maggie. She listened in silence. I knew it would happen. William could never hold a job. He always had excuses, always blamed others. "And how do you feel, knowing that?" Maggie was quiet for a moment. "I feel relieved. Because it confirms that I wasn't crazy, that everything I saw, everything I felt, was real." I took her hand. "You were never crazy, honey. You were just trapped." Maggie nodded. "But I'm not anymore." The weeks went on, January progressed, and with each passing day, Maggie seemed stronger, more confident, more herself. On Friday, January 22nd, a month after the Christmas lunch, Maggie made an important decision. "Mom, I want to start the divorce proceedings." I looked up from the blueprints I was reviewing. "Are you sure?" Maggie nodded firmly. "Yes, I'm sure. I don't want to be tied to him in any way anymore. I want to close that chapter completely." I smiled. "Then let's do it." The next day, Saturday, January 23rd, we went to a lawyer, a trusted man who had worked with me on contracts for the firm. We explained the situation. He listened to everything. Then he looked at Maggie. "Mrs. Ashford," Maggie interrupted. "Carter, Maggie Carter. I don't use the Ashford name anymore." The lawyer smiled. "My apologies, Ms. Carter. Based on what you've told me, this is a clear-cut case. No children, no shared assets. The only asset is the apartment where you lived, which is in your name, correct?" Maggie nodded. "Yes. I paid the down payment with my savings, and I paid all the monthly installments." "Then there's no problem. We will proceed with the divorce. It will take a few months, but it will go through." Maggie took a deep breath. "How many months?" "Between 4 and 6, depending on whether he signs voluntarily or not." "And if he doesn't sign?" "Then we file for abandonment and psychological abuse, but it will take longer." Maggie looked at the floor. "Okay, let's do it." We signed the necessary papers. The lawyer promised to send the notification to William in the coming days. When we left the office, Maggie walked with her head held high. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I hugged her. "Because it has. You're getting your life back." That night, we had dinner at a restaurant, just the two of us, celebrating her freedom. Maggie toasted with her glass of water. To freedom, to dignity, to starting over. I toasted with her. To you, honey, to your courage. On Monday, January 25th, The lawyer called us. I've already sent the notification to William. He should receive it today or tomorrow. Thank you, counselor. One more thing. Do you have any kind of security at home? Just as a precaution. Yes. We have cameras and reinforced locks. Perfect. Just be cautious. Sometimes when men receive these notifications, they react badly. I hung up and looked at Maggie. The lawyer recommends we be careful. Maggie nodded. Okay, I'll be alert. On Wednesday, January 27th, William received the notification. I knew because Catherine called me at the office. Her voice was cold, filled with rage. How dare you, Helen? How dare you make Maggie file for divorce? I remained calm. I didn't do anything. It was Maggie's decision. That's a lie. You manipulated her. You told her to do it. No. She made her own decision because she's tired of living with a man who doesn't respect her. Catherine raised her voice. My son respects her. My son loves her. Your son called her a fat pig in front of your entire family. Is that respect? Is that love? There was a silence. He was stressed. I already told you. And I already told you that I don't care. Maggie is not going back to him, and the divorce will proceed. Catherine was breathing heavily. This will have consequences, Helen. You can't just destroy a marriage like this. I didn't destroy anything. Your son did. And now he's reaping what he sowed. Catherine hung up. That same night, William came to my house. This time, he didn't knock. This time, he yelled from outside, Maggie! Maggie, come out! We need to talk! I went out first. Maggie stayed inside as I had asked. William, leave. You have no business here. William was drunk. You could tell by his voice, the way he stood. I want to talk to my wife. She's not your wife anymore, and if you don't leave, I'm calling the police. William laughed. It was a bitter laugh. The police? You're going to have me arrested? For what? For wanting to talk to my wife? For disturbing the peace? For harassment? For whatever is necessary? William took a step towards me, but he stumbled. This is your fault, Helen. It's all your fault. I was happy. Maggie was happy. And you ruined everything. I looked at him with pity. No, William, you ruined everything. And now you're paying for it. William just stood there, staring at me with hatred. Then he turned and walked away. He got in his car and drove off. I went inside the house. Maggie was crying. Mom, I'm scared. I hugged her. I know, my love. But it will pass. He'll get tired. He'll understand that he can't control you anymore. But deep down, I was scared too. Because men like William don't let go easily, not when they feel like they're losing. The following days were quieter. William didn't come back, didn't call, didn't show up. And slowly, life began to feel normal again. Maggie worked, smiled, went out with friends she had lost touch with during her marriage. She was becoming herself again. On Saturday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, Maggie and I went out for breakfast together. You know what, Mom? This is the first Valentine's Day in 2 years that I don't feel sad. I smiled. And how do you feel? Maggie thought for a moment. Free. I feel like I can breathe, like I can be myself, without fear of being judged, without fear of being humiliated. I took her hand. That's because you're no longer in a prison. You're in your own life. Maggie nodded. And I'm never going to let anyone take that away from me again. At the end of February, we received news from the lawyer. William had signed the divorce papers. Without a fight, without conditions. He just signed. When the lawyer told me, I felt an enormous sense of relief. He signed everything? Yes, he signed everything. The divorce will be finalized in the next 3 months. By May, Maggie will be officially divorced. I gave Maggie the news that same afternoon. She didn't cry, she didn't shout with happiness. She just smiled. It's over. Yes, my love. It's over. In March, I found out through mutual friends what had happened to William. After losing his job with Richard, he couldn't find anything else. He tried with several companies, but his reputation preceded him. No one wanted to hire him. With no money, he had to leave the apartment. He moved back in with his parents, but his relationship with them was broken. Ernest had lost all respect for him. Catherine was ashamed of him. William spent his days locked in his room, without a job, without friends, without purpose. One of his cousins, the same James who had mocked Maggie at the Christmas lunch, told me at a casual gathering, "William is not doing well, Mrs. Carter. Not well at all. He doesn't leave his room, doesn't talk to anyone. He's destroyed." I felt no satisfaction, no happiness in his suffering. I just felt sadness. Sadness because he had had every opportunity in the world and had wasted them all. And what is he going to do? James shrugged. I don't know. My aunt says he needs help, professional help, but he doesn't want to accept it. I nodded. I hope he finds it, for his own sake. In April, Maggie started dating someone. An architect she met at a conference. A kind, respectful man who treated her the way she deserved to be treated. One day, she came home smiling. "Mom, I met someone." I looked up. "Oh," Maggie sat next to me. "His name is Daniel. He's an architect, works at a big firm. And Mom? He treats me well. He listens to me. He makes me feel valuable." I smiled. "I'm so happy for you, honey." Maggie hugged me. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for saving me, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." I held her tight. "I didn't save you, my love. You saved yourself. I was just there to hold you up." In May, the divorce was finalized. Maggie Carter was officially divorced, officially free. The day we received the final document, Maggie held it in her hands and cried. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of liberation. "It's over, Mom. It's really over." I hugged her. "Yes, my love. And now your real life begins." And so it did. Maggie flourished. She designed incredible projects, won awards, reconnected with friends, found love. She started smiling again, like in that photograph from when she was 11. And William. William stayed at his parents' house, without a job, without purpose, without the woman who had kept his life running. The last I heard of him, he was working at a call center, answering phones 8 hours a day for minimum wage. Life, in a way, had made him pay. Not because I had destroyed him, but because he had destroyed himself. And that is the most perfect justice of all, the justice that comes from our own actions. 2 years have passed since that Sunday in December. 2 years since I stood up from that table and said what everyone needed to hear. 2 years since my daughter got her life back. Today is Sunday again, but this Sunday is different. Today, Maggie turns 28. We're at my house, in the garden. There are flowers everywhere. Roses, daisies, sunflowers. Maggie always loved flowers, but during her marriage to William, she stopped surrounding herself with them. She stopped surrounding herself with beautiful things because he said they were an unnecessary expense. Now her life is full of flowers again. The party is small. Just close family and a few friends. My sons, my brothers, some of Maggie's friends from college who came back into her life after the divorce, and Daniel, her boyfriend. Daniel arrived an hour ago with a bouquet of tulips. Maggie received them with a smile that lit up the whole garden. I watch them from the kitchen as I make coffee. Daniel whispers something in her ear. Maggie laughs. It's a genuine, free, happy laugh. And I feel my heart swell. Because this is the daughter I raised. This is the woman who was always there, waiting to be set free. My son Robert comes up to me in the kitchen. "Mom, she looks good. She looks happy." I nod, my eyes moist. Yes, she's happy. Robert puts a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing that day. We all know it." I smile. "I just did what any mother would do." Robert shakes his head. "No, Not every mother has the courage to do what you did. Many stay quiet out of fear of what people will say, to keep up appearances. But not you. You defended her when she needed it most. I look out the window towards Maggie. I couldn't stay silent. Not while I was watching my daughter destroy herself. Robert hugs me. That's why you're the best mom in the world. I go out to the garden with the coffee. Everyone is sitting around the large table under the jacaranda tree. Maggie is at the head of the table with Daniel by her side. We serve the cake, a chocolate cake with strawberries, Maggie's favorite since she was a little girl. We light the candles, 28 candles. We all sing. Maggie closes her eyes and makes a wish. She blows out the candles. Everyone claps. What did you wish for, honey? Maggie looks at me with those shining eyes I've known since she was born. I wished for this year to be as good as the last one, or better. Daniel kisses her on the cheek. It will be better, I promise you. We eat cake, we talk, we laugh. It's a perfect afternoon, the kind that reminds you why it's worth moving forward. At 6 p.m, as the sun begins to set, Maggie asks me to walk with her through the garden. We move a little away from the group. We walk in silence to the back of the garden, where the bench is where we used to sit when she was a little girl. We sit down. Maggie holds my hand. Mom, there's something I want to tell you. I look at her, curious. Tell me, my love. Maggie takes a deep breath. I want to thank you for everything. For not abandoning me when I was with William. For not judging me. For waiting for me until I was ready. I squeeze her hand. You don't have to thank me. That's what mothers do. Maggie shakes her head. Not all mothers. I've known women who went through the same thing as me, and their mothers told them to put up with it. That marriage is forever. That they had to make it work no matter what. But not you. You told me I was worth more, that my peace was more important than any piece of paper. I feel tears starting to form in my eyes. Because it's true. You are worth more. You always have been. Maggie hugs me. We cry together, but they're not tears of sadness. They're tears of healing, of closure, of gratitude. When we pull apart, Maggie wipes her tears. You know what's the most incredible thing about all this? What? That for a long time I thought William was right. I thought no one else would want me, that I was lucky he had chosen me, that I should be grateful. I nod. I know. I saw it in your eyes every day. Maggie smiles. But now I know the truth. Now I know that I wasn't the problem. That I was always enough. That he was the one who couldn't see it. Exactly. Maggie looks at the sky. And now I have Daniel. And he sees me. He truly sees me. He sees my worth, my intelligence, my beauty. And I don't have to beg him to love me, because he already does. I smile. That's because you deserve to be loved correctly, and Daniel knows how to do that. Maggie looks at me. You know what he told me last week? What did he say? He said, Maggie, every day I feel lucky to be with you, because you're brilliant, you're beautiful, you're strong, and I can't believe you chose to be with me. I feel my heart expand. That's how it should be. That's how it always should have been. Maggie nods. And to think I almost settled. Almost believed that what I had with William was the best I was ever going to get. I take her face in my hands. But you didn't. You got out. You fought. And now look where you are. Maggie smiles. I'm alive, Mom. Truly alive for the first time in a long time. We sit in silence for a few minutes, just listening to the wind in the trees, the birds singing, the laughter of the people in the garden. Then Maggie speaks again. Did you ever find out what happened to William? I nod. A few things, through mutual friends. What happened to him? I take a deep breath. After he was fired from everywhere, he got a job at a call center. 8 hours a day, answering phones, for minimum wage. He still lives with his parents. Ernest is sick, has advanced diabetes. Catherine is bitter. She blames everyone but her son. Maggie is quiet. And him? How is he? From what I've been told, he's depressed, alone, no friends. His cousins avoid him. His family sees him as a failure. Maggie looks down. I can't help but feel a little sad for him. I look at her, surprised. Sad? Maggie nods. Yes. Because he could have had a different life. He could have been someone different. But he chose the easy path. He chose cruelty over kindness. And now he's paying for it. I take her hand. That's because you're a good person, honey. Because despite everything he did to you, you don't wish him harm. Maggie looks at me. I don't wish him harm. But I don't wish him well either. I just don't care anymore. And I think that's the best I could have hoped for. I smile. That's called indifference. And it's the healthiest state you can reach after a relationship like that. Maggie nods. You're right. We get up from the bench. We walk back towards the group, but before we get there, Maggie stops. Mom, there's something else I want to tell you. Tell me. Maggie smiles. Daniel asked me to marry him. I freeze. What? Maggie laughs. He asked me a week ago. I didn't want to tell you until today, until I was sure of my answer. I feel my heart beat faster. And what did you say? Maggie shows me her left hand. There's a simple, beautiful ring with a small but elegant stone. I said yes. I hug her tightly. I start to cry. Oh, honey, I'm so happy for you. Maggie cries too. But this time it's different, Mom. This time I'm not scared. This time I know it's the right decision. I pull away and look into her eyes. Are you sure? Really sure? Maggie nods firmly. Yes, I'm sure. Because Daniel respects me, he values me, he truly loves me. I don't have to change who I am to be with him. I can be myself. And that's how it always should have been. I smile through my tears. Then I'm happy. I'm so happy. Maggie hugs me again. And this time, Mom, I want you to be happy. Without fear, without worry. Because this time, it's different. I nod. I know, my love. I see it in your eyes. I see the peace. I see the happiness. And that's all I ever wanted for you. We return to the group. Maggie announces her engagement. Everyone shouts with happiness. There are hugs, there are tears, there are toasts. Daniel hugs me. Mrs. Carter, thank you for raising her so well. Thank you for teaching her to value herself, because that's what made me love her from the first day. I hug him back. Take care of her. Respect her. Love her as she deserves. Daniel nods. I will. Every day of my life. The party continues into the night. There's music, there's dancing, there's laughter. And I watch it all from a corner of the garden. I watch my daughter dance with Daniel. I watch her smile, her light. And I think about everything we went through, all the pain, all the tears, all the nights I stayed awake wondering if she would ever be okay. And now I know the answer. Yes, she's okay. She's more than okay. She's flourishing. Later, when everyone has gone, when the house is quiet again, Maggie and I sit in the living room with a cup of tea. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, my love. That day, at the Christmas lunch, when you stood up and said all those things, were you scared? I think about it. About that moment, at that table full of people staring at me. Yes, I was scared. Scared of saying the wrong thing. Scared of making things worse. Scared of losing you forever. Then why did you do it? I look at her intently. Because I saw something in your eyes that day. I saw that you were broken, that you were about to give up. And I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't sit by and watch my daughter destroy herself. So I did the only thing I could do. I raised my voice and told the truth. Maggie's eyes are full of tears. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for having the courage I didn't have at that moment. I squeeze her hand. You don't need to thank me. I will always be on your side. Always. Maggie sips her tea. You know what surprises me most about all of this? What? That life really does settle its debts. William called me crazy. He told me no one else would want me. He said I should be grateful. I nod. Yes, I remember. Maggie smiles sadly. And years later, he's alone at a call center, living with his parents, with no future, no love, nothing. And me. I have a successful career, I have love, I have peace, I have a life worth living. I smile. That's called karmic justice. Life always balances things out. Maybe not immediately, but eventually we all get what we deserve. Maggie nods. You're right. We sit in silence for a moment. Then Maggie speaks again. Mom, if someone is listening to this story, what would you tell them? I think about that. I think about all the women who are going through the same thing Maggie went through. All those who feel trapped. All those who believe there's no way out. I would tell them they are not alone. That what they're feeling is real. That they're not exaggerating. That they deserve to be loved correctly. That they deserve respect. That they deserve peace. Maggie nods. And what else? I take a deep breath. I would tell them that getting out is hard, that it's going to hurt, that they're going to be scared. But on the other side, there's life. There's light. There's hope. And it's worth taking that step. Maggie takes my hand. And I would tell them to seek help. To talk to someone they trust. Not to do it alone, because no one should have to face something like this without support. I nod. Exactly. Because silence is what keeps women trapped. But when we speak, when we share, when we ask for help, that's when the change begins. Maggie hugs me. I love you, Mom. Thank you for everything. I hug her back. I love you too, honey. More than words can say. We stay like that for a long while, mother and daughter, united, healing survivors. And as I hold her, I think of all the women who are listening to this story, and I hope they know something. I hope they know they deserve more. That they deserve true love. That they deserve respect. That they deserve peace. And that it is never, ever too late to get your life back. Because dignity has no price, and freedom is always worth it. Today, 2 years after that Sunday in December, I look at my daughter, and I feel proud. Proud of her courage, proud of her strength, proud of the woman she has become. And I know that everything we went through, all the pain, all the tears, was worth it. Because she is alive, truly alive. And that's all I ever wanted for her. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think, if it made you see something you maybe didn't want to see, then it was worth telling. Because sometimes, one story can change a life. Sometimes, knowing that someone else went through the same thing and came out the other side is all we need to take that first step. And if you are in that situation now, if you are living through something similar, I want you to know this. You are not alone. There is a way out. And you deserve to be happy. Thank you for listening to the end. I share these stories every day in the hope that they will help someone. If this story resonated with you, subscribe and turn on notifications to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day or a whole life. God bless you, and until next time.